Some Vikings-related statements on this Monday. Super wild card weekend Monday. Joe, why don't you start us off here?
Let Dex go.
We go first?
I've been babbling a lot.
Okay. I can go first.
Okay, all right.
I can go first. Okay. No problem. No problem. My first statement, very simple. Do not jump to conclusions. It's not an Office Space reference, believe it or not. Do not jump to your conclusions. I'm referring to those who have completely written off Kellen Moore as the next coach of the Vikings or any team in the NFL.
I'm in that boat. You might as well just speak directly to me.
Okay.
I am out on Kellen Moore after what we saw yesterday.
Okay.
I'll join you.
You're speaking to both of us here?
Okay. Two things. Number one, go watch Emmanuel Acho's breakdown of that play from Twitter this morning, and actually why it was a smart play, but it was executed poorly. He has a very good explainer on it for the X's and O's. If you'd like even more of a football brain than this savant himself, I do recommend watching what he had to say about it. Okay. But I'm also going to regurgitate what I've been saying, too, about Kellen Moore, that he is obviously a smart offensive dude. He led that team to the number one offense in the NFL last year. He took a practice squad quarterback and beat you. He had backups playing last season. That offense was still league average. Now, is he ready to be a leader? Is he ready to pick his team up in a big situation like a playoff game yesterday and get them to make a huge comeback to go down the field and pull off the win? My point is, you see the QB sneak and you're automatic like, oh, that was the dumbest play call, and we can absolutely have that conversation, and that's probably a good case to be made. That was a horrible play call. But here's the thing. That entire game, DeMeco Ryans, who's the DC of the San Francisco 49ers and someone the Vikings are also going to be planning to interview. You're telling me that DeMeco Ryans' prevent defense throughout that entire final drive was not also in question as well? So if Kellen Moore and the Cowboys go down the field and they get the touchdown, and DeMeco Ryans surrenders like 85 yards in 40 seconds, out on DeMeco Ryans, I can't do it. We can't just jump to that conclusion after one play in one game. I understand why people are doing that, but Kyle Shanahan's the offensive coordinator for the Falcons in 2016. I know Shanahan's not the reason the Falcons blew a 28-3 lead, but guess what? He was still a culprit of that team. He gets a head coaching job the next season. We can't just absolutely pigeonhole ourselves into one play to say, I'm out. I'm completely out on that guy. Let these teams do the vetting process. They're smarter than me. They're probably smarter than both of us. Let them figure that out. Don't jump to conclusions.
I disagree with that last part. I think we found out that, like, especially with owners of a football team have no clue what they're doing. Like any one of us would be able to get in a room and they're fans. They're fans. But all right, so I will say one thing you did not address is the aggressive Eli Manning face that Kellen Moore exudes during big moments of pressure.
He's got some weird
Not
teeth.
in love with it. He's got kind of that dumbfounded
You guys, terrible.
He's got the dumbfounded Eli Manning face. No, but so here's where I'm out on Kellen Moore. And Mike McCarthy, as the overlord of this buffoonery, might actually get fired. Like, I could see Jerry Jones firing Mike McCarthy because he might lose. Dan Quinn's interviewing for jobs. He's the DC. Kellen Moore's. You know, if you're Jerry Jones, do you want to lose Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore, and Mike McCarthy is just left over? Like, got the
Pittsburgh tough
buffoon at the dinner table.
I coached Aaron Rodgers.
So some of this falls on McCarthy, but what I didn't like was just how disoriented those last two plays were. Total lack of communication among the players, coaching staff to the players. The other thing too, so I did not see Emmanuel Acho's breakdown. I did see Dan Orlovsky's breakdown on Get Up this morning, and we've heard this before. That let me quiz you guys. How many seconds on the clock when you have no timeouts left and you're going to run a play that doesn't get out of bounds? What is sort of like the cutoff for how many seconds teams are told? If you have this many seconds, you can run a play and still get up to the line and spike it. If it's under this mark, you're probably screwed.
I'm guessing, but I would say 20.
I would say 12.
So 16 is the number that you'll hear from players and teams.
And this was
so
14.
they had 14 seconds left.
Yes.
And they run this quarterback sneak. It's like, so on one hand, it was a brilliant play. They weren't expecting it. They gained a big chunk of yardage.
Yes.
But there wasn't enough time left to even start that play unless you were going to get down earlier. So you're talking about we're at the 40-yard line. We're going to run a play that gets us maybe 10 yards. They wound up getting like 15 yards out of it, but gaining the 15 yards ran the clock out. And you could say, well, but the official barreled in. the official's got to spot the ball.
Like,
So you've got a quarterback that doesn't know that he's supposed to give the ball to the official. You got wide receivers, by the way, and a tight end that are like putting their arms up. Are we snapping it? Are we spiking it? Like no one's communicating. So you've got this. We're brilliant. We're going to out scheme. We're going to run a quarterback sneak. No one's going to expect it, and yet you don't have enough time. No one's communicating on what happens next. Right? The quarterback doesn't know how to give the ball to the official, not the center. Just a total lack of focus, communication, preparation all around. And maybe some of it's on Dak for like not knowing what to do, but a lot of it's also on the coaching staff not preparing them for that crisis moment.
Who hasn't coached a player who doesn't learn early? The official always spots the ball.
Yeah.
Like there's never been a time. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald, who is the hallmark example for this type of play, sprints to the official and hands him the ball. He didn't do it because he's a moron. He did it because it's necessary. Like, how does Dak not know that, especially with that play call? And how was that not, like, are you telling me that you called a play you don't practice? Because if you practiced that play, handing the ball to your center is never the option.
Yeah.
Like, that was mismanagement on every level, and it's very concerning to see that crap.
Here's another one, all right? So I would be curious to see the analytics on this, and maybe I'm wrong. But I would rather take 2 shots at the end zone from the 40 than run a risky play like they did that might run the clock out. And even if you spike it, okay, so was it worth giving up a shot at the end zone to be 10 to 15 yards closer for what's basically another kind of Hail Mary?
No.
Why not just take 2 shots at the end zone? So I question a lot of things. It felt like a total cluster bleep, and it definitely scares me off on Kellen Moore. So.
Or to take a shot to the sideline to get the clock stopped, right? Like if that's your choice, your only non-choice is let's keep the ball in play.
That's 14 not a choice. Seconds left.
With 14 seconds left, and if any part of your play calling in that situation involves the phrase "we need the official to do his job," you're an idiot.
Yeah, and the official did do his job. He sprinted up, he grabbed the ball.
But they wanted him to go quicker.
Placed it.
They literally were. They were upset he didn't go quicker. Okay,
get in the ball.
If you're relying on that guy, I mean, these are guys in worse shape than me. Like you're literally going to. A lot of them are. A lot of them are. There's some. Oh God, were there some bad ones this weekend too?
So you're not even a little bit concerned about what happened there in that game? You're
sure.
Not even like a little bit.
A tiny bit.
I'm very concerned.
But also, that's where I'm going to trust that people are smarter than me to vet that process. Yes, I am.
No, don't trust.
I'm not going to be a keyboard warrior and assume that I'm watching a game on a TV that I know more about Kellen Moore being a leader. I'm not going, and I like Kellen Moore. I've been advocating him since like week 5 of this season. But I'm also not going to just jump to the conclusion that I'm out. I can't do that.
But as a head coach, it is where I come from. As a head coach, here's how you can. Sometimes you have to just read between the lines with leadership. As a head coach, or as a coordinator, it is your responsibility to make sure your players know little intricate details. The fact that the quarterback, in a panicked crisis mode, didn't know to give the ball to the official is a glaring red flag when it comes to the Cowboys' attention to detail coaching. And maybe it's more McCarthy, but like Kellen Moore is in that room too.
And he might be someone that still needs a few more years as a seasoning as a coordinator before he's a head coach. That could very well still be a possibility. He's a young guy.
He might just be a moron.
He's a young dude.
We didn't know it.
I don't think he's a moron.
Well, I mean, that play call was
I don't think he's a moron.
Play call. Okay, I'd like to talk to him myself.
He's not dumb.
I'd like to talk to him and find out. Are you a moron? Kellen, are you a moron? Because that play screamed moron.
All right, Judd, your first statement.
Okay, my first statement on this Statement Monday is the third domino will fall. And by that, I mean this. So often in life, as things that we liked or think or put on a pedestal fall apart, we say, okay, those things are gone, but I mean, now you've got the ingredients with this current group, right? Ladies and gentlemen, the trio that was the face of the Vikings until the last week was Rick Spielman, Mike Zimmer, and Kirk Cousins. They are tied together. Kirk Cousins is going to be traded. There is going to be, I don't see any GM and coach who gets here and says, you know what we really need to do? We need to build around a veteran QB. In fact, if I'm a coaching candidate or hell, GM, I say what we got to do is get a young, we got to find our guy. We got to find our guy. And Kirk Cousins ain't it. He's had his shots here. I honestly think if Kirk needs to be given the opportunity to be freed and to find out if he can truly win with a coach who loves him, okay? I think that there's a lot of coaches in this league who will like Kirk. Mike couldn't stand him, but I don't think there's going to be a ton of coaches who love Kirk at this age now, at this cap hit. And so I spent the entire Sunday fighting with the Cousins stands.
And Saturday.
Kirk Crusaders. Well, it got aggressive. My timeline now is fire of people.
It's Night of the Living Dead, man. It's just Kirk Crusader zombies.
And I'm trying to explain this. This is not about politics. It's not about religion. It is about personality to a certain degree, because I don't think that Kirk is wired correctly to be the type of guy who can ever win a Super Bowl. In fact, I'll say this right now. He will never. He will be lucky to get to a conference championship game before his career is done. And the solution, I think, is simple. And we saw it yesterday. San Francisco is probably going to lose its next game. I like them. They're a good team. I really do. But they're probably going to lose. Jimmy G is not the guy. And I don't know that Trey Lance being plugged in next year is going to take things over and be as successful as this current team in San Fran wants. In other words, it's clear as day. Trey Lance comes to the Vikings.
Wow.
Kirk Cousins.
You're going there.
Kirk Cousins. But I mean, it's what Kyle wants. It's what Kyle wants.
Do you think they would really trade Trey Lance on a 5-year rookie scale contract for Kirk Cousins?
I think John Lynch would try and stop it. But do I think that Kyle would? Shanahan? Absolutely. Yes, I do think he would. He could win in his mind, and this is all that matters. In Kyle Shanahan's mind, he would think, I can do it now.
So interesting. I do agree on the final domino. This isn't like, Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer getting blown out doesn't mean that the organization that Kirk won and the organization is going to build around him. I mean, I think the two most telling things from the last week, when you're looking, this is all of the stories that have come out and everything that everyone's hearing now is that there was just a major void in leadership here. GM, coach not talking to each other, coach actively, dismissing players and creating a culture of fear, right? Just lack of leadership. Mm-hmm. All right, so where can we turn for organizational leadership? What about the quarterback, right? Maybe he was just being suppressed and held down. It's like, well, okay, he literally came out after week 18 and said, quote, I just kind of go to work. I really insulate myself. I just know that I have a job to do, and I try to do the job the best I can, and that's that. He's like, he literally said, and we joke about, I just work here guy. He literally said, I just work here. I don't look at me. I just want to throw passes and make $30 million. And then, of course, after the firings, you're looking for, okay, organizational leadership. Who are the leaders? Who are the front people who are going to speak on behalf of what they want this thing to look like? Okay, Thielen, Kendricks, and Brian O'Neill come out and speak. We literally have heard nothing from the quarterback of this team. And so if leadership is a problem in this organization, which it is, and the ownership knows that, then they're going to trade the quarterback that eats up 20% of the salary cap, providing near zero leadership. It just can't happen right now, but it will happen. I agree with you.
And Kirk's potential saving grace here would have been if Rick stayed, right? Because Rick might have gotten in the new GM's ear and been like, I signed this guy. I mean, we saw it. It's all Mike's fault. Mm-hmm. But my question now is, who's here who's going to try to save Kirk? Nobody.
Yeah, the only thing would be like if a GM or a coach comes in and says, I don't think a GM would, though. I think a GM is going to say, let's get younger and cheaper here, and let's get some more upside maybe in a year or two in the draft. Yeah. Now, could a coach come in and say, boy, I'd love to I'd love to expedite this. I think I can get more out of it because coaches are going to think, boy, if you just surround him with some offensive infrastructure, and I think a lot of fans think that too. Well, imagine if he had a better, more offensive-minded, empowering coach than Mike Zimmer, because Kirk was dealt a really crappy hand with Mike Zimmer as a head coach and with Clint Kubiak as a coordinator over the last year. And so I think a lot of people are just making the leap that if you give him the infrastructure that he needs finally, then you're going to see this beast unleashed. And I think that's a little bit fool's gold. I think it's kind of a mirage. And I also think that when you're talking about a soon-to-be 34-year-old that's been in the NFL for 10 years, been a starter for 7, and we're still talking about, but like if you can just mold the circumstances better,
just change him.
I mean, at some point, he is a common denominator for the circumstances. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you. The third, what did you call it? A leg?
Third wheel.
That sounds weird.
The
third leg will drop.
The third domino.
Third domino
is what I said. The third, but I mean, he is going to go.
Yeah. Okay.
And people, and what I want to see then is how many of you Cousins Crusaders stand by him, and how many of you go Judas and disown him. I never really liked him. I mean, that was my friend Larry. Larry liked him. I didn't really like Kirk that much. Who's our next quarterback? Because that's coming next. I hated Zimmer. But 2 weeks ago, you told me Mike wasn't going to be fired. They made the right change now.
It's also just such a weird hill to die on. Like, I could see,
Monday.
If you're like a Zach Parise fan or something, like, yeah, they went to the playoffs, 7 years, and he was a favorite. Suter or Koivu fan?
All over the Grandland. Yeah, but that's true. It's the same type of thing.
Like, what have they even done anything with him? He doesn't have a personality. I don't know. The whole thing is just weird. I got a statement here for you guys, but first, Federated Insurance has been great at helping business owners with peace of mind, risk management. They have all sorts of tools and people that can help you. Information available at federatedinsurance.com. Think of them as an offensive line protecting your business against risk. That's what they provide. Been around for over 100 years, based in Owatonna. They are one of us. Federatedinsurance.com, and remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. All right, my first statement here is this is the most excited I've been for Vikings football in so long. And I feel like I said that last week too, but I'm even more excited now. Now that the interviews are taking place, you got so they've already interviewed a GM candidate. We're going to talk more about Nathaniel Hackett, who was the first head coaching interview yesterday. And we'll play a couple clips from him too on Purple Daily. So check that out today. But they interviewed... who is it? Is it Monty Asen Fort? Something. Monty
from the Titans.
The 17-year Patriots guy, right? As a GM.
Yep.
And then today they're interviewing Catherine Raish and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah for the GM positions. And then Brandon Brown tomorrow. Wolf and Cook of the Browns are going to go on Thursday. Spytech is also this week. So all these interviews are taking place.
That's Declan's guy.
Let's set a new Spytech. John Spytech. Let's set some new
Spytech,
culture.
are you there?
Let's get some new thinking, some new leadership, some more positivity, some optimism. I'm ready for it. I'm excited for Vikings football, even though they don't have any leaders right now.
Honestly, I'll piggyback off that too and say it's go time. It is go time for the next era of Vikings football. It's go time. Interviews are being made. The sting of the firing has came and went. It's time for the Vikings to narrow things down, dude. They don't have to jump and rush to make a hire like I think a lot of fans do. I don't think you can just sit on your hands and be patient, but you need to start making these next moves. And I'm excited for the next era of football. Can they find a combo that's engaged? Are they going to be adapted to the modern NFL? What are they going to do about Kirk? I know we're going to talk about Hackett on Purple Daily, but I'm actually more intrigued by him in the last 48 hours than I had been before. And at least on paper, the Vikings are doing some really interesting GM candidates here, dude. They're interviewing personnel and people who have led their respective teams to success. And I'm really curious if they can pry that person away and adapt those things to the Vikings. So it's go time, baby. I'm all in. Let's go.
Oh, yeah, you guys are excited. That's great.
Let's get it.
I think that's really good. Here's my next statement.
Not very sincere.
It wasn't. That was well, I am excited.
So you basically think that they have already screwed this up.
That's going to be my next statement. Actually, you're playing in perfectly.
How?
To my next statement. Just hold on a second. Statement is this.
Declan already takes offense.
The statement is this. Call me. The Wilfs. I want you to give me a call, and I want you to do it ASAP. Cell phone's right here, and here's why. I want to see your list. I want to know what the questions are. The list that came out on Saturday through various media sources, I was told on background is not the end of the list, but I'm going to tell you right now, it had some people I like, but it didn't knock my socks off. I want to have my socks knocked off before I buy in to the excitement being expressed by my colleagues. So I will ask a couple of very fair questions. Where's Brian Dable on that list? Is he there yet? I want to see it. I want to see it. Where is, let's say, Byron Leftwich? Because you're going to talk to Todd Bowles, who's a DC, who's had coaching experience before that didn't go well, and he's the DC for the Buccaneers. But Leftwich, who is a very hot coordinator candidate, who's a former QB, who, by the way, appears to have the skill to rally men, I didn't see him. I'd like to see this list. I'd like to know what you're doing. I feel like I'm the teacher who says, let's see your notes first before you start your paper, because I want to make sure that you're going in the right direction. And that list, I got a full disclosure. I didn't hate it, but I want to love it. I want to love it, and I want to make sure that people because I disagree with Dex completely. Are the Wilfs billionaires and know 10 times more about business than me? 100%. Would never, ever, ever say, hey, I'd like to see your books on your... No. But when it comes to football, am I going to say, I'm going to back off here? Absolutely not. And if you get the GM hire right, it can all flow. But if you screw it up, it's not going to. So call me, ask me, or tell me what you're doing, and I can give you a thumbs up, or I can give you a thumbs down, but it's going to help you.
Okay, a couple things here. So I would like to see Brian Dable, Eric Bieniemy, Byron Leftwich, and Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson might not show up on a list because he's not currently employed, but I'd love to see those four in the mix. Get a feel for them, okay? Doesn't mean it can't happen at some point.
Yep.
I also feel like, and maybe Declan can, maybe this can be an intervention here. I feel like sometimes you get panicky too early. Like you're criticizing them for a process that is in the early stages of playing out here. And you're criticizing them. They're going, like they haven't even interviewed. They've interviewed 2 of these 15 candidates.
No, but I'm saying, are the lists...
candidates, but
okay. So if you could, but that's why I would like to know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, listen, I'll tell you. So right now,
that's fair.
I'm all aboard the Nathaniel Hackett wagon here, just doing some more digging on him over the weekend too. He was already on my list of 4.
Sure.
Like early in the discussion. If they hire Nathaniel Hackett, I don't like it's a good hire. And if they hire Nathaniel Hackett without talking to Byron Leftwich, should they probably have talked to Byron Leftwich? Maybe, but like I think Nathaniel Hackett is going to be a really good head coach. So I'm not gonna let's let it play out.
Yeah, let it play out.
Breathe. These are the people who allowed their coach and GM to not talk for months.
Okay.
But they fired those guys. They moved on from.
But
those
they did
guys.
it too late. We could have gotten in front of this. This should be your only calling, in my opinion. Like I know you own a ton of stuff, but were you really not aware that the head of your football organization wasn't talking?
Well, I think it got that bad this year though. Like I don't think it's not like they weren't talking 2 years ago.
No, I know, but I don't care.
When you say this firing should have happened earlier, I agree, but earlier to me was a year ago. Like they should have done this a year ago.
Yes.
But like if those guys, and is it bad if they didn't know that those guys weren't talking in November? Like that's really bad.
Basically,
but once it gets to that point, you know, it's November. I get there in a playoff hunt, but like, what are you gonna do? Fire? I guess you could have fired
Mike
Spielman like 3 weeks earlier.
But I mean, you could have fired Mike weeks ago.
But I'm not like
a month ago.
Could they have handled this differently and have been a little bit more punctual in their attentiveness to it? Yes. Does that mean that they are actively botching the search? I'm not ready to go there. Maybe you're going to be right.
Right, but I'm
not
saying,
ready
what if
to
I
say
am
that
right
now?
I'm stepping in right now to help.
We all
them.
die. I don't know.
I'm stepping in right now to help them.
What if I'm right? I don't know.
I'm stepping in. Look, I'm telling you, I don't trust them. That's suppressing my excitement.
what other than call me? What's your solution here? They should get a few more names on a head
I'd
coaching
like to see
interview list?
I think yes, and I also think that I'd love to know what the thought process is exactly in talking to coaches. Like, what are they? Because if they're saying, we're going to probably bring in XYZ as GM, can you work with them? And we will flat out tell you right now, coach, we don't know what we're talking about, but we do know that this guy or gal might be GM. Then it's cool. But if they're like conducting searches that are like they've got a clue on coaches, and these guys aren't exactly the personality analysts. So like I have some fears that this is business people and football people, and I want people that can actually understand personality types. Because a lot of the things that we're discussing go to a place that this franchise with the Wilfs has never been. Brad, Rick, Mike. I mean, Frazier's the only guy that comes to mind, and I don't think that he could lead men, but I do think that he had empathy and understood people. Mm-hmm. He's the one guy.
It's also really hard to find head coaches that are empathetic, but also like holding people accountable and brilliant schemers, and so that's where I'm interested to see where this list goes. I will say, because I know that you've also raised a red flag about it's weird that they are simultaneously interviewing GM and coaching candidates. Why not just leave the coaching side to the GM that you hire? And I would say you can't just go like 2+ weeks without expressing interest in Nathaniel.
Yeah.
You got to at least
cool
flirt with him. Like,
but what are you doing? But what are you doing? Are you saying we like you and would like to talk to you more?
They are not talking X's and O's with these guys.
Right, because what I don't want them to do is to pare this list down and give it to the new GM and say pick from this.
But don't you think it's likely they're saying, all right, there's a bunch of names out there that are interesting, and we've done some sleuthing on this. Like, they've clearly done some background on this. Okay, here are some names. It's an incomplete list. Obviously, we'd like to see Bieniemy, Peterson, Leftwich, Brian Dable. It's weird that some of those guys aren't on the list. But don't you think they're saying, let's just get a feel for what we think of some of these guys, and then once we hire a new GM, we can say, hey, so we had some conversations. We really like this and this. You go ahead and have conversations too, and if there's another name or two that we should talk to, let's do it.
I'm cool with that.
Like, to me, it's collaborative. I think.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe you're
if
right.
that's what they're doing, cool. That's why I want to know more.
Dex, do you think they're screwing this up?
No, I don't think they're screwing this up at all.
They've screwed up before.
Yeah, but like,
do you want to win a championship?
If 2 years ago,
or be positive.
Look, the dog.
Judd,
all right,
you're really good at pointing
I'm going
at the
grim here. I'm going to go very
There's
grim.
a lot of problems in sports.
I'm going to go very grim. All right, with this comparison. Spielman and Zimmer were dogs on their last days over the last few years. You could have put the dog down 2 years ago, but you kept the dog around. Okay?
Selfishly.
And now your family, selfishly. And now your family is looking for a new dog. And you're like, well, you know what? We really should have put Sparky down 2 years before we did when we're looking for the new dog in the family. We don't
Actually, that's
Sparky
true, though.
is
That's
dead.
true.
Sparky
we
is
put
gone.
Holly down early because of that.
Oh, my
Because
God.
she wasn't doing so well.
You murdered Holly?
We could have
You
extended
murdered
her
Holly.
life by 6 months. But you
Judd
know what?
Kevorkian.
She was in bad shape. She was miserable, and that poor dog couldn't go down our stairs without pooping. I don't know exactly why, but that's what she did. And Dawn said, rightfully so, you know what? This is not fair to the dog. I'm going to tell you right now, it's a problem when a group of men in a locker room have guys who aren't talking, and you're like, let's just wait. Got to put the dog down early sometimes for the betterment of everybody, including the dog.
Okay, but the dog is gone.
The dog is gone.
The dog is dead.
But
We're looking for a new dog now.
Right, but you have problems in dog shopping. You have shown predispositions to make wrong moves before. I come along as the dog whisperer, and I tell you, I'll offer up my consultation because I know more about this than you do in some ways, so I will help.
Here's another disconnect we have. You look at Zimmer and Childress and think that the Wilfs royally screwed up. But they didn't. Those were two winning coaches that went to NFC championship games and wound up not being good enough to win a Super Bowl, which is the ultimate goal. But they weren't like train wreck coaches. They were winning coaches for the Vikings. So
Right.
I don't view those hires as screw ups. I view them as, oh, they took a shot, they were competitive, they went to
Okay.
the NFC championship game, and then it was time to move on.
Right. But this is not black and white. This is very gray, okay? On Brad, and this is when a year after the Wilfs had bought the team, Brad came here, and I think he was the first guy that they talked to here, and he threatened him. And he said, if I leave, I'm going to Green Bay, and I'm going to take that job. That's nonsense. The Green Bay Packers were not going to hire a guy who basically had the personality of Mike Sherman, okay? So the Wilfs got played because this should be a process. I agree with that. And again, if this list is 14 names, great. But the Wilfs got played there. Okay, that's their first year. Let's say they evolved and changed. I remember asking Wilf early on when I was still covering the team for the Strib after Spielman had gotten his job, which I think was executive vice president of football operations at the time. And Ziggy loved him, and he was like, he's great, he does this. And I said, why don't you name him GM then? Like, if he's that good, have a head of football ops. Well, it turned out that Brad had control of the roster in his contract. But Wilf was like, oh, no, I mean, this is great. And I'm like, more chefs ain't great, Ziggy. That ain't great. And so then on Mike, I agree. Mike was good. In fact, I am here not to crap on Mike because that's not fair. He did things wrong at the end. But the problem with Mike, and it came to a head, is the Wilfs then had two people in Spielman and Mike who didn't understand people at all. And one of them has to. So that's what I'm saying. So I'm not saying black and white. Zimmer sucked and Spielman sucked and Childress sucked. What I'm telling you is what I'm asking is what's their process to have learned from that? And I don't have complete confidence that aging people like me can learn like, oh, we're going to go to a class and learn how to read people. And so that's my concern. I'm good. I am blessed with the talent of being able to tell a lot about people. I like some of them, I don't. I don't think the Wilfs have that. And I think that's how like Rick and Mike got to be these two control freaks. And nobody could read the room, which in 2022 in sports is imperative. So I'm not saying it's destined to fail. I'm saying, are they finding new ways to approach this? Because if they're not, we are going to repeat lots of the same problems. And I, for one, want this team to win a Super Bowl. Can't do it with people that can't read people at all.
Yeah. And I think everything you just said there is valid. I think Declan and I internalize all of that and say, yeah, there's definitely a risk that they could hire the wrong person.
Right.
I guess we'll see what happens in the next week.
But that's what the
And
fans
you're
say.
like, oh my God, we're all gonna die.
Yeah, because this godforsaken
Don't
show
look up.
is the only
We're
show
all looking up. We're
that
all looking
represents
up, right?
the best interest of the fans.
But we're all looking up.
We're not.
We all see the comment. There's a chance
Yeah.
it might hit. Okay.
Yes.
We're
But
all.
I mean, we're-
none of us are looking down.
But I mean, we are the one show in this town that tries to bring reality and mix that with how do you get a championship.
Yeah.
And I feel
think-
like, all the Wilfs know a ton. No, they don't.
I think there's some home runs on these lists, and I would like to see a couple more names on the lists. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Just made the list.
You just made the list.
You just made the list.
All
It's a
right.
fun conversation, actually.
We're gonna carry over some of this onto Purple Daily here. We're gonna talk a lot about Nathaniel Hackett on Purple Daily today. He was the first head coaching candidate out of the gate yesterday to be interviewed, and there's some interesting comments from current and former players about him that we'll get into. So check that out on Purple Daily. Mackey and Judd's statements, the deep dive, the autopsy, if you will, into the culture of the Vikings. So. If you're watching us on the Score on the YouTube channel, definitely hit the subscribe button and click the like button too if you want daily Minnesota sports fodder, entertainment, speculation, therapy. We'll see you guys tomorrow.